What does your kid like to do? Do they like to draw? Do they like to paint? Do they like to go for a run? Do they like to work out? Do they like to go to a farm and hang out with animals? You know, what is their go-to that makes them happy, that fuels them? And then kind of forcing that and doing it in a way that's like, hey, let's do this together. That gets them out of their rooms. It gets them away from their books and studying. And you're also creating that space for them to feel a little bit more vulnerable with you and giving them that opportunity to say, hey, you know, now I feel like sharing.
Something that a lot of us feel challenged by is when I am talking with someone, whether it's a close friend about mental health, or it's maybe a part of my job or my profession, how much vulnerability do we share? How much do we, what feels safe enough to share? But what's like, also this moment isn't about me, the moment is about them. And so how do I make that the focus? So do you have any advice for us on that?
Yeah, again, just that vulnerability of letting them know ahead of time and in advance, and then also making it very aware and very obvious, but I still want to be here for you. I'm here for you. And so, because I think it's important to let those kiddos know, or anybody that you're talking to, that, you know, you're human, right? I'm not a robot. I have feelings too. I have bad days too. And so recognizing that, acknowledging that, and also letting them know, and I'm still here for you, right? But I don't want to let that impact what you need, what you're here for. And so that's what I would say, is just making sure that you're in that vulnerable space and you're able to do that willingly. And I don't think we have to disclose a lot. Some people do, you know, especially if it's a death in the family, you know, like, hey, my grandma just passed away. And I haven't had that yet, where, you know, I've had a loss and a student has come in and it's very similar. So I anticipate those to happen every once in a while or something. And so you can never really prepare for those things either. And that's why I always say vulnerability, and just be authentic. Be authentic and be you, with an open heart, with kindness, and just caring. So
Yeah. I think sometimes a good like rule of thumb is being vulnerable about how your day is going is great. Like being vulnerable about like the depth of like a season that you're in, maybe not appropriate for the moment, you know, depending on your job or who the person is that's sitting there. You know, it's one thing to say, I got a really bad phone call this morning and I'm having a rough day. I'm so glad to spend this time with you.
Yes.
And this moment's not about me. I just want you to know that, like, we are all having a rough day today, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But like, I might not share that the phone call this morning was, you know, I owe $6 billion to the IRS or something, you know, like, you know, there's just there's like a limit in there in terms of what is kind of right and appropriate to share in a moment. But I totally agree. And I think that that is a generational thing, because I would say baby boomers, definitely some Gen X, we grew up not like, that's not stuff you just unload with or share, even like how your day is going.
Yeah.
How are you? I'm fine. Like that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is a skill set that I think especially some of us in, you know, those generations could definitely work on, is, you know, what kind of vulnerability am I okay with? What feels safe? Who is the audience? And what should I hold back on? Because there is the need for that as well. Okay. And so what would you say are some of the burning issues, the like teens today are struggling with, you know,
Mm.
and like let's list them. Like what are some big issues that you see coming into your office or coming down the hallway, like the challenges that teenagers today are facing?
Oh man.
I know we don't have time even for like the list, right?
We don't. Um, social
Like
media.
the top ones, yeah. Social
Yeah.
media, and what aspect of that? I think I
I
can
mean,
guess, but just, you know, for
yeah,
clarity.
sure. Cyberbullying for sure, 100%. And I think there's this expectation. So we now have to have a consent talk in our school. So we bring this incredible. She's actually a parent as well at our school, but she is a licensed counselor and therapist, and she works with teens, females specifically, who have been sexually assaulted. And so she comes in and she does a consent talk for our freshmen and sophomores, and she talks about social media side of things. And even if you get an inappropriate picture of someone and you just show it to your friends or a group of people or to one person, and they didn't give consent for that, then that's child pornography, and it's real, and there's big consequences for that. And so there's so much with social media that kids just don't understand, and they don't understand the consequences, and they don't understand how to properly use it, and those kinds of things, and it's impacting teen mental health across the board in so many different aspects and layers. You know, you will get the I guess you could say more common and things that happen in person where, you know, a girl is being called ugly, or, you know, those kinds of things as well on social media. But it's a lot heavier than that. And these kids don't realize that. And so trying to educate them on that is hard. It's really, really hard because there's no control over it. And we don't have control of what they're sending back and forth. We don't have control of what they're saying on these platforms, and it's so hard, and it's harder for the kids. I couldn't imagine. Every day I thank everyone, you know, God, my parents, everyone, for not giving, like, not having social media in my world growing up. I couldn't even imagine. I mean, it's awful. So
Yeah. I mean, junior high is has enough insecurity
yeah.
all on its own
Mm-hmm.
without adding that element. And then you
Yeah.
get into high school, and if you've dealt with it all through junior high and now you're in high school, yeah. So what age do you recommend? I know it's dependent on the kid and the maturity or whatever, but like what are the guidelines if a parent comes to you and says,
Mm-hmm.
when when is the right time to developmentally, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and socially to introduce social media for my kids?
I would say, and honestly, it's so hard to answer that question because everybody's different, you know, and we're seeing so much addiction around social media and technology and cell phones and those kinds of things that it's really hard to say because everybody's personality is different. And so, my philosophy personally is, you know, introducing it with limitations. And I think the biggest thing that I am seeing is it's not being modeled for the proper intention of what social media is supposed to be used for. And so I always tell my parents, model these things. You know, if you have TikTok, if you have Instagram, if you have Snapchat, whatever it is, model and be friends with your kids on those platforms and send them, you know, a funny reel of puppies or something. You know, model the appropriateness and what it is intended for, and not kind of those other negative things. So that's probably the biggest advice I get or give. when parents come to me, because I don't know that there is an appropriate age. I don't know that there is a right time. We just had one of our students, he's a senior this year, and he helped me out with a presentation, and he shared with some parents that he found in his research that really you should limit to an hour a day on social media for your kids. And so I thought that was powerful, and I thought it was more powerful coming from him. And we really tried to do that in our school, is we want everything to come from the kids, and everything, all of our programs, all of our clubs be peer led. And we really try and take a step back and supervise, but that's really only our role. And the kids take those platforms off. And so I thought that was very powerful coming from him. And I agree, you know, limiting it to an hour a day is generous, but I think a good starting point.
Yeah. Okay. So major burning issue, social media, cyberbullying.
Yes.
What would
Yes.
you say falls second under that?
Academics. And this is nothing new either. We have students who, just yesterday, I had a kiddo come into my office sobbing and crying because she has an A in pre-calculus, but she doesn't feel like she's understanding the content, and that she's going to fail, and that she's not going to be successful. And it's an AP class, and you know, she wants to go to a big school and all these things. And this is nothing new. We've dealt with this for a very long time. And parents will sit there and say, well, we're not encouraging this. We don't care if they're top of the class. We don't care if they're valedictorian or all those things. And so I don't know, you know, we're not in the home, so we don't know if that's true or not. But these kids have this idea of they have to be the best of the best academically. They have to have straight A's. They have to take all of the AP classes. They have to get into Harvard or Stanford or any of the Ivy Leagues. That's their goal. And it's hard. It is hard to because those are all good things, right? That's not necessarily bad things to strive for. But when it's impacting your mental health, and then it's impacting your physical health, well, now there's a problem, right? And it's so hard for them to find that balance. And so really just trying to help them through that and help them understand that, you know, that these are good things to strive for. And it's okay to strive for straight A's. It's okay to strive to be able to speak at your graduation, you know, and how are you doing that? What are you doing to take care of yourself? What are the things that you're doing that make you happy on top of all those things? Because it can be very, very stressful for these students, and it's hard. It's hard to watch too.
Yeah, it's like, you know, we always try to look at the need behind the behavior.
Yep.
Both in ourselves and in others we may be trying to come alongside, right? And so if the goal is to be numerically, you know, above a certain point, or the goal is to speak at your graduation, or the goal is to get to a certain school, like, what is the need behind the stress that's involved in that? Like, is the need because that's the only way I'm going to feel seen, or is that's the only way I have value, or that's the only way I can prove that I'm enough, or like, what is the narrative that's running behind all of that? Because of course those are great goals. Yes, 100% go for it. But when it, like you said, when it impacts, you know, mental health, it's kind of like that's when it's crossing over into, you know, territory that's not healthy, and, you know, can take us, you know, down to some dark paths. And so I think that's a good question, maybe for parents or for you know, professionals that are working with teenagers, is when they come to you with questions like this, the question I like to ask is, what is the need behind that behavior? What's the,
Yeah.
let's take an emotional pulse here. You know, what's
Yep.
happening really here? And it's not like the person can say, oh, it's because I was raised like, you know, they may not
Right.
be able to just like spout out the reasons
Right.
behind stuff, but it gets us going, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So what are
Mm-hmm.
some ways, some other ways that folks in academia, folks in working in schools, folks that work with or have teenagers can encourage their teen in academics when they come to them with these kind of academic challenges?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is meeting them where they're at and knowing where they're at. And that's hard to do because sometimes, a lot of times, teenagers don't tell their parents everything. And so what I hear in my office a lot of the time is I don't want to let my parents down. And I don't think that students are sharing that with their parents. I really don't. And that's hard as a parent. And so that is definitely something that needs to be acknowledged and out there because even if you say it 100 times, just do your best and that's all we care about and we, that's all we want. That's still not is what they're telling themselves or how they might be feeling. And so I think, again, from my experiences, really kind of forcing them that time and that space for self care and knowing what those things are. What does your kid like to do? Do they like to draw? Do they like to paint? Do they like to go for a run? Do they like to work out? Do they like to go to a farm and hang out with animals? What is their go-to that makes them happy, that fuels them? And then kind of forcing that and doing it in a way that's like, hey, let's do this together. Let's go for a run. Let's walk the dog. And that gets them out of their rooms. It gets them away from their books and studying. And you're also creating that space for them to feel a little bit more vulnerable with you and giving them that opportunity to say, hey, now I feel like sharing. They might not, and that's okay because you're still providing that safe space for them. And sometimes that's just what they need. And so that is probably some huge stuff that I find would be really, really helpful and what we do with our family as well.
Yeah, great stuff. Great ideas. Okay, what would you say number 3 burning issue would be
Um,
under social media and academics?
gosh. And I'm assuming this is all related to mental health, right? Because
Sure.
that's what we're talking about. Um, relationships. Just relationships with other people, friends, romantic ones, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
I've had kids. Sometimes it's a revolving door almost in a day where I have kids coming down and saying, she said this or he did that, or just those relationships. And I don't know if it's a lack of empathy. I don't know if it's a lack of respect. Sometimes it's both. Sometimes it's neither. But yeah, building relationships with others is pretty difficult right now. And I think it's from all of the environmental stuff that kids have going on outside and around them and trying to navigate that. And kids love to hide behind the screen and that's how they feel vulnerable. And then they get to in-person conversations and it's totally different for them. And so I would say that's a pretty big issue right now.
And what's a way, like, say I have a daughter who's struggling with, say I have a teenager. I
Okay.
don't, but let's just say hypothetically,
Okay.
a parent comes to you and says, I have a teenager and her boyfriend just broke up with her and she's devastated and she thinks her life is over. What do I tell her?
Yeah.
What would you say to that parent?
Oh, man. Helping them recognize a time when they felt like that, I think, is important.
That's great.
And yeah, and that can be hard because sometimes, we know as adults, I don't remember who I broke up with in high school half the time. I don't just don't remember those things. But that doesn't mean that they weren't impactful in that moment. And so I think reminding parents situations or times where they had maybe had those similar feelings so that they can kind of, again, meet their kiddo where they're at, and then try and help them understand that this is only temporary. And that is all of these things. Anything that we talk about today is so much easier said than done, and it takes so much practice.
For sure.
And also relaying that to their student, to their kiddo, and saying, this is only temporary. How can we get through this one day at a time? What do you need from me? And I will say that I actually do have a lot of students that have said to me, my parents know about this, and those kinds of things. And so that's great that I'm seeing those relationships between parents and student. And I just also don't think that parents don't necessarily have all of the tools to help in all situations, which I don't either as a parent. And so that's why I'm just trying to continue to educate myself and do the best that I can in that moment. And that's really all that you can do, is the best that you can in that moment. Make sure that they feel seen, make sure they feel heard, and make sure that they're safe. And what really leaving it up to them. What do you need? What can I do for you in this moment? That's really, really hard for you, and I can see that. And we're trying as a school district. I love the school district that I work for. I absolutely do, because our administration and even at our district level administration, they allow us to talk about mental health. They allow us to have that space to do both, of academic support and mental health support. Where honestly, in public education, you don't get that everywhere, even in our own state. And sure. During my practicum, when I was in getting my master's, I had a peer, a cohort, and we were doing our practicum hours, and we were meeting on Google Meets and talking about our experiences of our practicum sites. And she was at a public school, where they weren't even allowed to say the word suicide. They couldn't even talk about it with kids. Wow. If kids came to them and said, I'm thinking about hurting myself, they had to actually turn them away. And and if you called parents, that was a huge no-no. And to where staff members were like getting fired for those kinds of things, and reaching out and helping. It's mind-blowing to me. I can't. Wow. And this was just a few years ago. Yeah. And so, again, I'm just very thankful for where I work at, because they allow us that space to do it. And we had parent-teacher conferences on Wednesday night. And as a counseling staff, including our social worker and our school psych, and then all of our grade level counselors, we put on 2 sessions. I take that back. So we paired up in 2s, and we each had 3 different sessions, but we had 2 times that parents could come to those sessions. And so my session this year was mental health support. And that's the session that we put on. And it talked about all of these things. How can you help support your teen through mental health and things like that. And we had a slideshow, we had discussions, we had conversations. My first session, and we have over 1,200 students, mind you, at our school, 9 through 12. And our first session, I had 2 parents come, Meredith. Only 2 parents. And the second session, I had 3. So
parents are not only super busy, which we have no judgment for that, but 100%. Maybe not seeing this as a resource as much.
Yeah. Yeah. And not understanding the benefit from it. Because
Right.
we're doing these things not, and we even said that in our presentation. When your kid is struggling with mental health, that's not because you're a bad parent. That does not
Right.
mean you are a bad parent. I
I'm
feel
so
like we've
glad you're saying that. Yes.
Yes, and I feel like we've all been there as people, that we have
Totally.
all struggled in some way. And that doesn't mean that our parents are bad parents or whatever the case may be. It just means that sometimes we need help, and that's okay. And maybe we also share and sit and talk about, maybe you're not the one that your kiddo feels comfortable going to. Maybe they need outside support, and that is also okay. So just that outreach, and it's hard, and it does feel frustrating at times because you want to do so much and you're trying to do so much, and then you just don't get a lot of response, I guess. You don't get a lot of people wanting those things, or seeming like they don't want those things, and definitely want to echo, I get it. Being a parent is extremely busy, and making those sacrifices, and trying to make things work, and attendance of anything that involves your kiddos is hard. That is so hard. But yeah, I just wish we had had a little bit better of a turnout.
Well, sometimes in these situations, like, people need to see it and see it and see it and
Yeah.
keep seeing it, like, as a resource, and then they'll say, "Oh yeah, there's that thing."
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I love that you're offering that, and it is very innovative, for sure. And so with all of these issues, which I'm sure there's a list of 1,000, right?
Yes.
That
Yes.
teenagers come into your office, or that you interact with, teenagers' struggles during the day. What is the number one thing that you would say to parents in coming alongside teenagers in their mental health?
It's kind of a two-part, because I feel like
Okay.
they're both equally really important.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to that vulnerability, and
Mm-hmm.
sharing your feelings, we got to
Okay.
get past the I'm not going to share my feelings anymore. We got to get past that as
Right.
a society. We have to start naming our feelings and getting it out
Yeah.
there. And the other part is modeling.
Mm.
Modeling those kinds of things. So that's probably the best advice that I could give, is
Yeah.
if you want your kiddo to be in a healthier space, mentally, physically, all of the things, you have to be able to model those things as well, to show them that
Absolutely.
it is okay. It's okay to feel frustrated with work. It's okay to
Sure.
feel sad by grief or something that happened.
Sure.
All of those things. And so modeling is probably a huge one for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Oh, that's great. Great wisdom right there. And one thing that, a topic that comes up often here on our podcast is the concept of faith, how we
Mm-hmm.
integrate faith
Mm-hmm.
into these contexts. And so I
Yes.
wonder if you would share some of.
Yes. It definitely is hard to, at a public school, right? I have to be careful around those kinds of things that I'm sharing. And I love it because when we do get the opportunity to share, which we have lots, we do. And so we have Coffee with Christ in the mornings. We have a platform called Sources of Strength, where again, that's all peer led. And so if the peers bring faith into that, then we can roll with that. It just can't come from us. Those kinds of things. And I talk about faith when I talk about students is just the faith of holding on, right? The faith that this is only temporary, and having faith that you're going to get through this. Again, just because I have to be careful of what I say, and so again, I love it when a student comes into my office, and they bring up God and their faith, or anything along those lines, because then I can interact with them in that aspect, and it's great. And we can talk about those things, and we can talk about, well, the whys behind stuff sometimes, or just how is their faith going to help them through this type of situation.
Yeah.
So,
And sometimes that can be the place where we are vulnerable, or we say, you know what, these are the places where faith in Christ for me really can impact how I face challenges. That's a real easy place to bring that in, for moments that we feel comfortable to do so.
Yeah.
And led to do so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, is there anything else that you wanted to like share with us today? Like top of mind, like I want to make sure we cover this kind of thing.
I would say yes. There's a couple of things that again, my school district is incredible and amazing, and that they're doing that I am just really passionate about. So we have teen mental health and first aid. We have them coming into our schools, and we just had a training, an all staff training, and then we will also train students. But in our health classes, we are talking about these really heavy things. We're talking about suicide. We're talking about mental health.
That's
and
great.
we're bringing it to light, and they have a workbook that they go through, and they're also getting trained on, if I have a friend that comes to me and says, I'm thinking about hurting myself, whoa, that is heavy, right? And I know for me, I've had that happen to me when I was in high school or middle school, and I didn't know what to do. I was like, it's going to be okay. You're great.
Right,
What do you
right.
say in a heavy moment like that? And so we are training them, and we are helping them understand that, yes, it's heavy. It's going to be hard, but here's the steps that you can do to help those people. And so
Right.
it might be, hey, do you have a safe, trusted adult in the school? And maybe the answer is no. Well, I have one, and I think they're great. And I've actually talked to them about this kind of stuff before. Do you mind if I walk you down and take you to them? And just those kinds of things, because that's not
Right.
something I would think of in the moment, right? When somebody comes to me with something that heavy. So I just love that about, again, our school district. And I also love that our parents know about it. They have to, and they're supportive of it. And so there is a ton of parent support and community support. And so I'm loving seeing that and being a part of that. We also have Sources of Strength, which is another upstream suicide prevention. And it's a club that we run, and we meet every Wednesdays at lunch, and we do campaigns, and we talk about the sources wheel and what are your sources of strength? Is it physical activity? Is it mindfulness? Is it family resources? Is it positive peers or mentors? Those kinds of things. And that's all student led, and they're the ones coming up with the campaign ideas, and they're the ones talking to the students at lunch and those kinds of things. So I am seeing a lot of really, really good things happening, and it gives me hope, and it makes me excited, and again, it makes me love my job so much more, and being able to support students in that and those kinds of things. And then I also have been doing some trainings, and I'm actually this will be the first time that I take my athletes, my team to a training, but we have in Colorado Springs True Sport, and they are based out of the Olympic Center, and they are incredible. The last session that I went to, which was 2 years ago, it was let me see, I have it right here, True Sport, Mental Wellness, and the Athlete. And they had sports psychologists come and talk and present and talk about the things that they're doing with their athletes at, the collegiate level or the professional level. And this November, I'm going to take my my athletes, and we're going to go to a true sport mindset of a true sport champion conference, and they're going to get to hear from Olympians, and they're going to get to hear from sports psychologists, and they're going to get to do activities that include leadership and culture change and self-awareness and self-care and self-growth and community impact, and how do you lead with care and courage, and those kinds of things. So definitely just
I
really
love all
trying
of
to,
that.
yeah.
That's amazing.
And true sport is incredible. They are so incredible.
Wow.
They're really trying to get that the athlete the help that they deserve, right? And they've talked about identity and how a lot of students and a lot of student athletes feel like their sport is their identity, and that's not healthy in that world. You know, there's so much more to you than being a football player or a basketball player or a volleyball player. There's so much more to you than just those things. And what are those things? What are your other strengths? Because at some point your sport's going to end. At some point in your lifetime, whether it's after college, whether you do go professionally and it's after professional. And they also talk about injuries and how an injury can, you know, make that retirement happen even sooner, and you might not be prepared for that. And that takes a huge toll mentally.
Absolutely.
On anyone at any age. So
I love all of that. And we're going to please, include the, links and all that stuff for people that are interested in getting involved in true sport. And you also mentioned mental health first aid. We just finished a podcast with David Calvin, who I know came and I know, isn't he great?
Oh, he's awesome.
It was a great chat with him, and very, very powerful. So we'll also include links about mental health first aid, because you mentioned that. And these are wonderful resources. And I hope that all of our listeners are taking notes, because I certainly am. And so did I cut you off? Was there anything else that you wanted to add there?
No, that was pretty much it. So just definitely wanted to talk about the good that's happening as well, and all the things that are going on, and it just makes me that much more passionate and excited, and I want to learn, I want to soak it all in so that I can just be the best version of myself for anyone that walks through my door or steps on the court. So it's all great stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. That is critical for all of us, is to get to feel some hope around this. And I think the more awareness, which we hope this podcast brings, the more awareness we all have about mental health issues and all these different facets of our lives, then you got people that are interested in bringing some of these things in, and interested in bringing in more trainings, and interested in taking athletes to places like True Sport, and all those things bring hope. So gosh, thank you so much for being with us today. I just have one final question. Where do you see beauty in this season?
Oh, man. So I'm actually going to do... It's funny because I've told people, they've asked me, what are you doing this weekend? And I said I'm going leaf peeping. And nobody seems to have heard that term. And I'm like, it's just where you go and you look at the fall colors changing. So you're peeping the leaves, right? But that's what I'm doing. So, and I love about this season is just the change and the beauty in the change, and reminding me that change is okay and it can be beautiful and peaceful at the same time, just surrounding yourself in the middle of the forest and with a cool breeze and some of those changing leaves falling on you. It just can be so peaceful and so warm feeling, inside. So definitely my favorite.
Oh, I love that. Well, I might be doing some leaf peeping along with you this weekend, because it's the time, it's the season. We have to get out there before the season's over. So gosh, thank you so much for being with us today. And this has been just really, really special. And I'm just so thankful to know you as a person, and
Likewise.
to just all of the work that you are doing, the amazing parents that you and Sean are, and the way that you have shared with us today in, vulnerability, but also in wisdom. And so we just thank you. We just appreciate it.
Thank you, Meredith. Yeah, of course. Anytime.
Well, thanks so much. And to our listeners, we will see you on the trail. Hey friends, I'm here to talk to you about the impact that James Trail is having around the world and how you can be a part of it. So there's several levels, and what we're talking about is financial giving. We certainly need your prayers and other ways that you support us, but we're talking about $50 a month provides a 30-minute consultation for a family in need. $100 a month provides 1 hour of trauma-informed training at one of our conferences that we're involved in, which is about 4 or 5 different conferences during the year. A gift of $500 a month provides 1 day of a workshop in a site here in the United States or in one of our global sites. And then $1,200 a month. This is the Trailblazer amount that you will find on our website. This helps us to get into the global spaces where folks are partnering with us for their local people who are in need. And, sometimes people say, $1,200, that sounds like a lot, Meredith. Well, it is 100%. It is a significant amount of money. And that is the kind of cash that it takes for James Trail to go to some of these places. So for example, for any of our global trips, what we're talking about is our airfare, and sometimes it's me, sometimes it's others of our staff, but it's airfare, it's accommodations, it's food, it's materials. Sometimes there's, this is not even counting the time, our time to provide, these workshops. And there's so many hours of prep that goes into it. Another thing that you can support is if you have enjoyed our podcast, I say, yay, I'm so thankful for that. Friends, it costs several $1,000s a month to put these podcasts together from our amazing team. And so these are just some really tangible ways that you can come alongside us at any point in the year. Thank you so much. And here's my question. If you believe that James Trail is making the world a better place, then why wouldn't you? So please join us and give today.